Welcome back. We're going to do a two-part series on the pandemic. In part one, we're going to talk to Mark Janus of Janus Travel, who's watched his business get crushed by the pandemic. And in part two, we're going to talk to Danial Hultin, who caught COVID-19 to find out what it was like. So stay tuned. Welcome back to another FUTRtech video podcast. Today we're going to take a bit of a different approach. Now, we've heard from various businesses about how they are adapting, and we've talked about the impact of the illness. But what we haven't talked about are the people out there who are really struggling for their futures. The tech sector has been fortunate because it has been enabling businesses in this environment, but other sectors haven't been so lucky, and travel is one of those sectors hardest hit. And there is no relief in sight for them. So today, we have with us Mark Janus of Janus Travel to talk about what it is like for people with small businesses who are faced with the destruction of their dreams. And I don't think we hear enough about them. I've known Mark for a long time, and he's a hardworking, dedicated guy who always takes care of his customers. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sundish. Appreciate you guys having me today.
And as always, I have with me Sundish Patel.
What's up, everybody? Thank you so much, Mark, for being here today.
You're welcome, my friend.
Super excited, man. I really appreciate it, man. A friend of Chris's is a friend of mine, and the fact that you're from Chicago just makes you extra special. So thank you for being here.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. So thank you again for having me. I appreciate it very much.
So first off, Mark, tell me how you're doing. How's your family? How's everybody faring through this pandemic?
Well, overall, the family's good. My mom, who's 84 years old, actually is probably the most adjusted out of everybody. She seems like she's actually she told me today that she played solitaire all day long and actually had a great time doing it, which for me would not exactly be the way that I would consider it being my, I guess you could say that wouldn't be the highlight of my day necessarily, but she's doing well. My sister is a nurse, and actually she's doing great. She's actually working not with COVID patients, which is good, but she's trying to help out with the people that need assistance, because there's so many of the nurses that have volunteered to work with those patients that she's actually administrative, but she's now volunteering to help out in other facets of the hospital. And so in a lot of ways, in terms of family health, everybody's doing great. No one's sick. I just think, like everybody, we're probably all just getting a little bit stir crazy. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so Mark, so Janus Travel is a family business, I understand, right?
Correct, yes.
So tell me a little bit about the history of that.
Yeah, sure. So it started out with my father was a police officer, basically. He started the agency with another police officer in the mid-'70s. And what happened was the cop that he sort of got together with was selling vacations on the side for a couple tour operators, and then he got my dad involved. Yeah. And so they slowly were initially just selling to other cops and city workers, firemen, those sort of jobs. And then as things progressed, they started selling to the general public. Yeah. And then eventually they had a falling out. They split up, and then my dad started having the idea of maybe opening his own agency, and so that's what happened.
And the business was really quite successful for some time, wasn't it?
We were actually, in the 80s and 90s, we were actually the top leisure travel agency in Illinois for Apple Vacations and FunJet Vacations. Yeah, we sold more all-inclusive trips and places like Vegas. Like, I remember in the 90s, we used to get like $105 round-trip airfare to Vegas because they had all those charters. Right. And so we had a steady stream of people coming in and basically booking airfare and all-inclusives. And it was an amazing business. But then we all know that travel agencies, they've definitely kind of gone, not going to say that there's still not a lot of agencies out there, but clearly with the internet and then with 9/11 preceding that, the tech crash preceding that, I mean, there's been so many things that have changed the industry in a lot of ways. But yeah, for that period in the 70s, 80s, 90s, I think we were doing great. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, obviously we've all heard about the challenges of the travel agency in business in the shadow of the internet and internet booking and things like that.
Correct.
But it seems like you kind of found a good niche where you were very high touch with your customers and you kind of gave them a different level of service that they really appreciated.
Well, I think that's kind of the reason that there still are travel agents to begin with, because just what I mentioned previous, like most people, I'm not shocked if people watching this are surprised that there's even travel agents that are still in existence. I mean, to be real, right? It's like most of us don't even think about that being a small business that was affected by this. They think about the airlines, they think about the cruises, but they don't realize that there's very small businesses. Like I literally have one employee. It's myself and my employee, two of us.
Yeah.
And as you brought up at the onset of this, Chris, I think in a lot of ways, this is an industry where the little guy isn't really remembered as much as, the airlines and the big guys out there. But to what your point was, yes, it's true that one of the reasons that I think we've stayed in business so long is that we focus on customer service and the idea that what I do for a living, I have to really care about what someone does when they book through me. In other words, I really want to make sure that we're fitting the right vacation for them. And I mean, we get all kinds of stuff. I actually booked two guys about 2 years ago to Kilimanjaro. They actually literally made it to the summit. And so I book stuff like that. And then I book all-inclusives to Mexico and Jamaica, those kind of places. So it's the gamut. But with all of them, the common denominator is that I try to treat everybody the same and really try to make sure that I get them what I think they need and what I feel would make them happy.
I got to say, I really miss the days of the travel agent because it's like, I travel on points so much now because I have a lot of points, and that obviously is not something I can book through a travel agent.
Right.
But the problem is I get to places and, things go wrong. And I feel like every time we travel somewhere, I spend the first day of that trip dealing with the chaos of things going wrong.
With all my clients that had issues, I was there for them. And I was the one that was on the front lines waiting on hold for some of these help desks for literally 5 or 6 hours trying to get through to help these people out.
Yeah.
So, but I think that is the thing. It's like we're so used to as you said, the fact that a lot of the customer service has kind of faded in years. But we're getting used to that. We're getting conditioned to really just have apps and all those sort of things that we base our lives off of.
So tell me, I mean, like obviously you probably saw the slow wave coming crashing down on you,
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me about like just what happened there. I mean, because I know you must have, you had a nice niche carved out for yourself, and then all of a sudden COVID hits.
I think my story would probably match a lot of travel agents, or really people in general that work in travel,
or just small businesses.
True. That's a good point. Or small businesses as well, because it was interesting. It's this thing where when it first started, there was a trickle, right? There's this thing where you're seeing some people asking questions like, I've been hearing about this COVID-19 thing. Should I be worried about my vacation? I'm concerned about going to Vegas. I'm concerned about going to Jamaica. And before this thing really blew up, there wasn't really a lot of information other than, okay, it's similar to the flu. There may be situations where you may have to watch, if you're maybe with cruises and those kind of things. But it didn't really seem like it was going to permeate across all sectors of travel, meaning hotels, air tickets, those kind of things. Well, then all of a sudden there was that slow onslaught where we were getting more and more people that were getting nervous. And pretty soon that's when the cancellations started coming in. And at first, you're trying to like hold the dam back, right? Like you're trying to put your whole weight into keeping this, because you're watching all your money and everything that you've worked so hard for. That's the other thing that people don't keep in mind is how many hours you spend working on these things.
Because you don't get paid unless they take the trip, right?
Correct. Yeah, and if you do get paid in advance, some of these companies will pay you in advance to get the money off their books. Mm-hmm. And then guess what? You got to send that back. Mm. So if you get that commission paid, you have to send that money back to the tour operator in order to fully refund the client. I mean, technically, some agents could probably keep it, but to me, if your trip was canceled or you're scared, I can't really do that. You know, we pretty much waived all our cancel fees and just refunded people back in full.
Oh,
But now it really got to a point where I'm really just numb to it now. Like I basically expect people to cancel. So there was an emotional side to that where, you know, you really, I couldn't sleep at night, and, you know, you're thinking, how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to be able to get groceries? But as things progressed, you finally just came to the conclusion that it's kind of inevitable that you're going to be looking at no bookings. And that's what it is. Like, we basically lost all our reservations for April, May, June. And who knows? July, there's basically nothing on the books now. August, I've got some people that were forcibly canceled by the cruise line because they canceled all the Alaskan sailings. And so those people didn't even cancel themselves. They were canceled by the boat themselves.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, that's essentially where it was. I guess there was shock and doing what you can to try to keep your business. But then there was just the conclusion that there's nothing you can do. You just have to kind of let it, you know, wash over you.
Well, that's got to be, I mean, that's got to be really terrifying because, I mean, you know, like you said, it's like, this is your whole life. I mean, you've been doing this your whole life, and you're just watching that just fall apart. And there really is no end in sight at this point, because I think, you know, we're very fortunate in tech where things are going to probably pick up a little sooner than most of the economy, but travel and hospitality is probably going to lag the economy in recovering, right?
Yeah, to your point, I mean, I think people are just I mean, think about it. Like, if you go to a grocery store right now, you are already worried that the person that's next to you might have COVID, right? Mm-hmm. Or you could go for a test if you felt ill and then find out later that you were a false negative. And then you're worried. And then there's such an insanity to this that if there's a spiral, like a circular spiral that goes with this. And so suddenly, imagine someone that would even consider going on a plane for 7 or 8 hours. They're in a capsule. And granted, it's true that the air is circulated out, but I think people just aren't comfortable with. You can still get sick. I mean, someone can sneeze on you.
Yeah.
if you're on the plane. Yeah. So I get it. I realize that that's the concern, but it's just, to me, I guess I'm hoping that at some point there has to be an end of the madness where people will have to put their foot down and be like, look, I can't live my life where I'm terrified about going out in public to talk to a stranger. I can't, talking to strangers or going to bars. And I mean, we really can't go on like this forever. So,
but the reality is, it's like, is that going to be in time for you? I mean, you can't do this indefinitely, right? I mean,
no, you're right about that. I mean, I'm really at a point now where I think you and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I was sort of drawing the analogy about how my life is currently kind of like Groundhog Day, which I think it is for a lot of people. The Bill Murray movie, where the redundancy. But for me, my day is basically IDES, which I'll explain in a second, PPP, and then SOL.
Totally.
That's exactly my day. So the IDES is the Illinois unemployment website, right? So I've literally for 6 weeks been trying to get through to customer support because I'm having a problem logging into their website. And if anyone that that's tried to reach IDES is just it's futile. Like, you call. I can almost memorize the menu and tell you what you go through, but they essentially hang up on you. They say, we can't take your call at this time, please call back. And then when I go on the website and try to change, you can't change your password, you can't change your username, the challenge questions don't matter. And the PPP, as probably most people know, is the program that was designed as part of the CARES Act to help out small businesses. And we were knocked out of the first round where we didn't get any money. And I am getting, every day I get an update from my bank, but we still haven't got funding on that. And so I'm really at a point where, and then on top of it, paying my employee, I'm trying to keep her employed, but there's nothing coming in right now. So I'm really getting to that point where if I don't get that money soon, she's going to get laid off or furloughed, and then what? That's pretty much it,
So Mark, but it's even worse than that for you, because you were telling me that you're basically working for free because your work didn't end. Your work got more complicated when all this happened.
Exactly.
But you don't get paid, right?
If the carrier itself, let's say both of you were going to be going to Scotland together, right, on a trip, and American decided to cancel the flight on you, well, then you have the option of getting a refund. Like you can do that or have a credit towards a future airline ticket. So we are working with people that have those options. But then there's other people where if the carrier didn't cancel the flight, but you were not comfortable and you just didn't want to go, right? Let's say you were going to still be going to Europe, but then you're like, I don't know, this COVID thing, obviously, I don't want to be on a plane. They're not refunding people money back. Like you are essentially stuck with a credit. And so we're trying to keep tabs of those credits. And then on top of it, we've got people that are getting refunds, but then we have to keep on top of the refunds. But to your point, every canceled booking or every booking that's pushed off means that we are not receiving any kind of commission on that. So we are, as you pointed out, we're working for free. Like I'm coming in just to help my clients out, but there's no income and there's no benefit really to this at all.
Yeah, and you're working in an even more challenging environment because you're trying to call to cancel things, and it's like a 9-hour wait, right?
Well, they've gotten actually the reason that there used to be those kind of hold times is because there was a chaos in the policies that were initially coming out. Because believe me, when this thing hit, all the tour operators and cruise lines and airlines were scrambling out what do they do? Like, what is their policy? So for us to receive clarification on those policies, we had to speak to somebody. But now it's an automated system. I can go in and cancel a reservation, or I can do this or that because the policies are in place. Yeah. But a lot of agents were worried about whether or not if you, let's say, cancel your airline ticket, what happens if the airline isn't going to allow a credit back or not, or maybe not allow you to get a refund because it was canceled without knowing the policies. Yeah. So that's the reason. But no, that's luckily kind of dissipated now with that.
And you're also doing rebookings now too. You got to do the rebookings, which you're not going to get paid for, right?
So the way it would work was that, let's just say again, you both were going on a trip and you canceled. What happens is the trip that you initially purchased through us or through the agency, through the operator, that money credited would go to a new date if you wanted to travel in the future. But what happens is we're working twice as hard, right? Because you booked the initial trip. Now what happens if we book the new trip and you're like, well, we don't really want to use the air for Edinburgh. We want to go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And so suddenly this means that I'm working on a brand new vacation for you that's completely different. Means I got to do different research. The insurance, if you want to purchase that, can be a whole different animal. Flight schedules, seating assignments, all those things, points, all that. So that's the negative, is that you are working twice as hard and maybe even for less money, because it doesn't mean you got to pay for the same trip cost. You could actually bring it down. If, let's say you lost your job and you want to get away, you're looking for maybe, instead of a $3,000 trip, you're looking for a $400 trip.
Right. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah.
The PPP has not come through for you. I mean, like many small businesses, my wife is a small business who got no PPP money as well. You can't get unemployment. And every day this goes on, you're essentially losing money. I mean, like, so what are you doing? I mean, how are you feeding yourself? I mean, you're paying an employee. I mean, it's like, it's got to be breaking the back a little bit.
There's still money in the account. I mean, I'm able to cut, but I've had to scale back my pay considerably. Like I'm literally, most people work a minimum 40 hours for full time, right? So I'm working a little bit under that because of the business, of course, there's not like I'm booking a lot of vacations. I'm working on cancellations, and those have slowed down, but I'm pretty much paying myself half of what I normally would pay myself. So I'm basically paying myself almost on a part-time basis just to have some money to buy groceries and pay my assessments at the condo. And I've had to freeze my mortgage payments, but the funny part about that is all the mortgage payments that I've pushed off, they're all going to be due in full in July. Yeah. So they're giving me the ability to, instead of adding it to the end of the mortgage and saying, okay, you'll just pay that at the end, they're like, okay, here's your mortgage times 3. Yeah. And give it to us in July. And I'm like, how is that going to help anybody out that doesn't have any money coming in? I mean, suddenly you're making it even more painful. But basically I'm just scaling back as much as I can, tightening the belt. I mean, I'm not A lot of businesses, a lot of utility companies and those things and the operators are working with us because they know what we're going through, right? And even things like Verizon and that, I mean, they've helped out a bit here and there, but sooner or later, a lot of that's going to be due. It's not like you're necessarily getting a break on a lot. It's just that I'm at a point where I'm not at the bottom of the barrel just yet.
You went into this with some more resources than a lot of people have, right? I mean, there's got to be a lot of people out there who don't have any savings and have, they can't get through to the unemployment. They can't get any PPP money and they have no money in the bank. I mean, I can't even imagine what that must be like.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the closest industry that I can kind of bond with this is anyone that works in either hospitality or industry, someone that's maybe a bartender or, people that work at the Empty Bottle or, Talia Hall or one of those clubs. I mean, I feel for them because it's like I can only imagine what they're going through. And if they have the same problems that I'm having, where they can't get through to IDES, and how are these kids surviving, And maybe some of them aren't even kids. A lot of people work in those industries as a career for their life. So you could be in your 40s or 50s, and how much savings do these people have? I mean, you're right, and that is the part that I think about. So I understand that it's not a pity party for Mark Janus and Janus Travel. I mean, there's a lot of people that are hurting out there.
Right.
But it just happens to be that travel really is the one industry, aside from bars and restaurants, I think that are really being hammered. I mean, those are the industries. I feel terrible for anyone that's in either one of those because I know what they're going through. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I mean, I get extreme, because I've had loss in my family from COVID, and so when I see people out, protesting the lockdowns, it gets me very frustrated, right? But like when I talk to you and, like I try to put myself in your shoes or in the shoes of like, those waiters and waitresses that are out there with no savings. I'm like, man, maybe I just have to have a little bit more empathy for the people who are out there who are really, really suffering because, like, I mean, there's a lot of idiots that are out there just, like, nobody will tell me what to do kind of people. But there's a lot of people out there like, what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to pay for groceries? How am I going to eat? Where am I going to live? And that's scary too. I mean, that's, dying from a virus is scary, but that's scary too.
No, to your point, I mean, I think that where is the safe haven for these people? Like, if you're someone that has skill in being in hospitality, or someone that maybe has worked as a bartender your whole life, I mean, that's what right? I mean, you're going to expect this person now to become a coder, a programmer. I mean, they can, but I mean, it would take them time. They're not going to be doing it in 2 months. It's like, so there's a lot of people that are going to probably have to reevaluate, and that's what I'm doing right now. Is I have to think about, where am I going from here? I mean, because at this point, granted, if I can ever get through to IDES and get help with logging in, maybe I'll finally get some benefits. But the federal, by the way, is throwing in an extra $600 a week, but that's only till the end of July. And
well, and from what I've been seeing from some people who said they've called IDES 100 times a day for weeks. Yeah. But there's also, I guess, if you're a 1099 worker, you don't qualify for unemployment, but you do qualify for that $600 piece of it, right? So, but you have to get denied unemployment benefits and then use that denial to register for this other piece. So, I mean, they made it so complicated. I don't see how people will navigate that.
Well, even the PPP is goofy. I mean, it's something where when they give you that grant money, which is probably the way I would describe it versus a loan, you have to burn through that in 8 weeks. Like, it's not like I can salt away that money in the sense of leaving it in the account and being like, okay, let's see if we can stretch this out. Because if I'm paying my full-timer for 40 hours a week or more, for what? I mean, what are we doing? Like, am I going to have her, unless I'm going to have her start painting and doing drywall, there's not a ton that I can really make her do, because if most of the bookings have been canceled already, there's no work. And that's the weird part about it. It's like, why not just let the business hang on to that money as needed instead of having to blow through it in 8 weeks? Because all that means is that I've got 2 months where I've got money, but then what? Where does it go from there? Sundish, I wanted to ask you as well, because you and I spoke about this a few days ago, about you have some experience with this with your own family, because I know that you brought up that your brother runs that hotel in the suburbs, and I was just kind of curious if you've heard anything else. Is he doing okay? I mean,
I think the thanks for asking. So they have a small sleep-in hotel. It's a franchise of Choice Hotels. They're in Lake Bluff by the Naval Academy. So as long as there's people graduating and families are coming to visit, they can sustain the business. But how they've been really making their profit has been through the travel and going to Great America and all those kinds of things. The families come in town and they stay there, and he provides the service and stuff like that. And so, hey man, it's scary. Like everything you've been saying, that's what I've been thinking about and worrying about is
because that's a family business as well, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you said your father was initially had had two hotels and then
2 hotels.
Yeah.
Yep. And then and then after 2008, that one didn't work out. And then here's another situation which there could be a similar outcome, God willing not, but man, this is the scariest part for me is the one thing in this conversation I'm realizing is that from what you're telling me is you feel like the whole travel agency business is no longer going to be around. Is that or are you saying like the big ones will survive?
No, I think they'll be able to get by. I mean, the thing is this: it depends on. Personally, for me, it's rough because I think like a lot of small business, you have thin margins. I mean, you're not making the kind of profits that some of these major corporations are making. You're just trying to have enough money to salt away a bit, but then you're trying to pay your employees and the basics that come with running a business, right? Because we're brick and mortar. We literally have a physical office. I think the industry itself is not going to necessarily collapse where there won't be travel agents that will be able to survive from this, but they're going to have to take extreme measures like I am. Like it might be something as much as like shutting down that business temporarily and going into something to keep money on, food on the table, and then going back into it at a later date. I mean, because if this thing extends for another year, another 2 years, who even knows? There's not going to be too many people standing, but I still think that there'll be a light at the end of the tunnel.
There'll be some.
Yeah, there'll be. I think so.
There's no answer to this, right? I mean, because it's like we can't just open the businesses and have everybody go back because there is this very serious disease out there. But on the other hand, like people got to eat and they got to, they're watching their dreams literally die in front of them, right? And that's just incredibly hard. And I think the only thing that I can see that we can do right now is just be empathetic to each other, right? I mean, like the people who are losing people to the disease, the people who are losing their livelihoods and their dreams to this disease. I mean, like we really are all in it together, even though like it's presenting itself as a certain sense of conflict sometimes. But we all are just in it together, and we're just going to have to figure it out.
It's such a cliche these days, though, right? Because everyone keeps saying that, but it really is true. And not to be the pessimist, but there's some assholes out there, and it's just, and it's funny how they're like perking up their head. Chris and I don't care about the dollar. We really care about our people and the experiences that we have at our work, and
there you go.
Without our people, man, it's nothing. And I will do anything I can to keep our people, that. But
I got to say, I still need the dollar. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I worry about that too, because I mean, like, even for me, I mean, like, we look at our industry, a lot of the other competitors have cut 25% off the salaries across the board. I mean, that's not a small amount.
No.
And we've lost benefits too.
Yeah.
And it's happening everywhere, right?
But and don't cry for me, right? I mean, I'm doing all right, but I see, like things see a freight train kind of coming at us still too, right?
Well, I agree.
Totally.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of people out there that, as you said, Chris, like you have to be empathetic. But there are people that just don't get it completely. There's people out there that they're in some industries where they're flourishing right now, and so to them, the only thing that drives them nuts is the social distancing, the things where they feel like they can't go to the local bar, they can't go to the golf course with their buddies.
It's making this work stoppage worse because it's extending the period of time when this is going to be happening. So like to say like, let's reopen the business, it's not going to make it shorter. It's going to make it longer in the end. And that's the problem. It's like, but like I said, I mean, like, I think I get it. I get it. We're all like freaking out. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And but like you said, it's like it's the assholes who screw it all up. right? For everybody.
When shit hits the fan for them, I think people don't know what to do because they're like, oh man, what are people going to say about me? What are people going to say if I lose my job or if I can't pay my bills or I lose my business in your case and things like that? I mean, those are really, really big deals. I think we need to have the empathy for those people now more than ever. And we need to support them and say, look, man, I understand. Like this is, who saw this one coming?
I did.
Yeah,
so
nobody. Yeah, you did. That's true. Yeah.
The way I look at it is like I'm trying to explain to my parents in Gujarati, the best I can of like what is actually happening, right? And so they have a cultural like misunderstanding of kind of what's happening, and like and we have to like educate them through that stuff. But I think that we'll be able to protect them. Ultimately, I think that they're staying in. The biggest issues I have are like the younger people, that what Mark is saying. My issue is the ones that aren't taking this thing seriously. They're fucking it up for everybody else.
Yeah.
That's the part. It just and that's why I'm not watching CNN anymore. I've put guidelines around myself now that I can only watch CNN once every 2 days, and I won't go on Yahoo News because I'm telling you, it makes me so angry. It does nothing good for me.
So like, what's next for you, right? I mean, because this may be an existential crisis for Janus Travel, right? I mean, we don't know. I don't want to be, like a downer here, but I mean, I'm certainly, you got to be thinking about like what you're going to do next. I mean, this is something you've done all your life. So what's next?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, Chris, because I don't really. I'll just be perfectly honest. I'm not sure where exactly I'm headed at this point. I mean, in some ways, that's an incredibly depressing thought about like. As you said, it's a family business. I mean, even when I wasn't working at it and I had other jobs, it was the fact that it was always in the background. I mean, I was traveling with my parents when I was a little kid, and it was courtesy of Janus Travel, right? So, and there is a certain part about that where if this thing crashes and burns, there is a part of your childhood and your family that you're seeing destroyed, and it is depressing. But the other side of it is that. We're all going to go on from here. We can all sit around and talk about, it's social distancing and people that don't pay attention and kids. But there's a part of me that does feel optimistic that the worst case is that I have to reinvent myself and look into something else and maybe that's a good thing. I mean, I think change is scary, and I'm not saying it's easy. I think that's why most people avoid it, is because it's difficult, especially when you get a bit older. But I'm sort of, in some ways, excited. I think the thing that I'm not excited about is the credits and the cancellations that I'm working through, and that stuff that'll go through next year.
Yeah.
So then it's like, how do I juggle? Because there's a real chance that if nothing picks up, then Mark Janus is going to be doing a different job, but then he's got to try to handle those things. Or does Mark Janus
I think that really says something about you, that you're thinking about the fact that your business may be shut down and you'd have to go find something else, but you're still trying to figure out how to take care of your customers, right?
It is
exactly, no doubt.
That's heartwarming to me, to hear somebody that exists in the world. That's a great thing. So
yeah, no doubt.
Well, it's just not in my nature to really leave people high and dry, and I think that's the problem. Is that you're right. I've had several people say to me, forget those people. Just do what you have to do just to help yourself out, and I'm like, well. At a minimum, I'd make sure that they were set up where if they needed assistance, that they're not left high and dry. But there is a concern about that, because my job and my personality is that I don't want to leave them flailing in the wind, especially if they have money coming back to them. We want to make sure that they get taken care of.
Yeah,
the best that we can help with anyway. So
well, I think the thing is, like, I got to admire the fact that you've got great people skills, you got great sales skills, you know how to service a customer, you know how to take care of people, and that's something that's going to translate to any industry. I mean, anybody would, those are the skills that are so hard to find. The rest of the stuff, I think, can be taught. It's like, but knowing how to talk to people, to empathize with people, to care for people, and be responsible and take your job seriously, that's a hard thing to find in the industry. So I think anybody would do well to have you on board, certainly. And I think
there's no doubt. There's no doubt, Mark. The number one thing I look for in our industry, and Chris knows this, is I just look for likability. Can we just like this guy?
Yeah.
Is he a nice guy? Is he, is he too temperamental? Is he too judgmental? Can he just be a good guy that just makes good decisions? I'll take that guy all day long over the guy that has every answer for everything and he's better than everyone else. That dude sucks, because you're not going to move. You're not going to move further. I want to be the dumbest guy in the room, right? And I want to surround myself with great people that we can all just go together with no ego in the room.
Yeah.
And just Mark, I haven't known you for too long. We've had a few conversations in today, but there's no doubt in my mind. I think the next version of you is going to be awesome. Yeah. I have absolutely no doubt, and I think in my opinion, I think you're going to look back a few years from now and be like, maybe this is what you needed to kind of get you out of your comfort zone.
I agree.
And let those wings.
It is a rough time. I mean, it is a very rough time for me and a lot of people. And I think, but if you say, look, there's something there can be good that comes out of this, and even the stuff that comes out of this now for a lot of people, there are things that are good. I mean, I have friends I had a friend who actually had some substance abuse issues for years. He was an addict, right? And because he's been forced to stay at home and stay out of the element, meaning the music industry, he's cleaned himself up. He's got back together with his ex-girlfriend. He's spending more time with his daughter. He said he's more happy now than he's ever been in his entire life. And so it's fascinating to see the other side of that too.
Yeah.
We talk about the destruction, but I understand that there's such a weird time. There's so many different
no doubt
stories that float out there. There's people on the brink of divorce. There's people that are probably
reconnecting,
bonding better. Reconnecting. Exactly. There's kids that want to kill their parents. There's a bonding that's going on like it's never gone on. And that's what I mean. It's such a surreal period for a lot of people.
So bizarre.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, nobody wants this to go on. I mean, this is. I know overall, it's a thing that is probably more negative than positive. But my point is that there are things that are coming out of this for some people, and really all of us, if we look at it, there's certain things that come from this that are positive. Maybe it's me with rebirth of career, and with you both, you're both family guys, you have children. I mean, you said maybe there's that where you feel like you're connecting more with family. Those are all good things, and you're forced to, right? Because you can't get away from them.
Yeah, totally.
So
Absolutely.
Mark, I think I want to just thank you so much for coming on and telling us your story. It's been an absolute privilege, and I think podcasting is in your future. That's the next iteration.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sundish. Thank you too. Both of you guys have been amazing. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell my story and be on your podcast.
Hey, look, man, I think you have an incredible story, and it's been great getting to know you, and I really appreciate you, opening up like this. I think it's awesome that you're thinking more than just yourself. So.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click the like button, hit that subscribe button. That helps out a ton. And click that bell icon if you want to get notifications when we post new content. And I will see you in the next video.